Architecture was by chance for me because I didn't think to be an architect. When we got to California in the 40s, late 40s, it was explosion of tract houses and wood frame, and they were building fast. They were cheap, fast, and it had its own aesthetic. When I finally started in architecture, I used to go around and take pictures of industrial buildings, and I don't know why, I started looking at the spaces between buildings, and I got really excited. Then I could fantasize different profiles and these engaging. And once I started doing that, I was pretty interested.
It means that the architecture was not...
The architecture wasn't important.
It was not in the building, was it in the in-between?
Par hasard, not by design. I loved Schindler, I loved what was going on, but I didn't want to copy it. I didn't want to do that. A serious part of the education, I think, is the Asia influence in California, which was very powerful, more powerful than a lot of people understand in talking about California architecture. You see it in Green and Green, you see it in Frank Gehry, you see it in Maybeck and Escherich, and but in Harwell Hamilton Harris, which nobody talks about. Philip Johnson gave a speech and talked about the one-room building, and it was, you know, and I was trying to figure out how to get to the essence, like my painter friends. What does Jasper think about when he makes his first gesture? The clarity, the purity of that moment. And it's difficult in architecture. And when Philip gave that speech, I said, aha, that's it. The one-room building could be anything, because it just has to keep the rain out. But there's no complexity in it functionally that makes it do something. It can be like that's why churches are just a beautiful space. And that's what I did, that little house, the village houses, where I put them together because I didn't have much work and I wanted to do as many one-room buildings I could. So then I got to Morandi. When I started putting them together like that, I realized this was Morandi.
And the idea of the in-between reappear.
Right, then the in-between appears, reappears, the making. And we're working on towers now in Toronto, which is a dance between two tall buildings and focusing on the space between. I draw, when I sketch, there's a continuity in my line. And the fish came to mind because postmodernism strengths were anthropomorphic shape, from anthropomorphic references in architecture. On the Lewis house, I started to try to evoke the fold, which is primitive, in which every painter in history, I mean, you look at those paintings, the portraits, the head is this big, and then the rest of it is all fabric. And so these guys were they were architects in a way. They were building shapes and things with fabric. And I became interested in that. Michelangelo's drawings of fabric, of the fold, and Bernini's fold.
Klaus Sluter?
Klaus Sluter came later. So there's something connected to the drawing, the fluidity. There's something about finding something that was primitive but human that came through the ages, from Phidias to now. So I was looking for a language that had a humanity to it. And the fold is primitive, and it's consistent through every period of architecture and art. There is more power in taking the computer and getting it to a smaller scale where you can do more fine things. Once you get it to a smaller scale, You can make the big scale, but you have more freedom. In other words, you use the computer for your own creativity. You don't let the computer be the creator. But I think I still rely on the model technique for building because it's direct, my hand to the thing. I don't build the models, but it's more direct, it's more personal. When you put it only in the machine, and now you can put it in a machine and you can push a button, you get a 3D model, a 3D print. It's totally impersonal. So I look at history as I try to understand what the artist was thinking, why they did what they did. How did that happen? How did the fountain in Piazza Navona end up with these cuts looking so beautiful? Well, the show, you know, it was his thumbprints in the clay, and he just translated it into the stone. So it was very human, very normal for Bernini to do that. That's what I look for in history. What are the human touches? What happened because of the technology that was there, and then try to say, we've got new technology, we've got new things. How do we not lose that? You know, I had this discussion when I was working on the campus, new campus for Harvard. I was part of a team. The president, Larry Summers, they asked me, what kind of architecture should the new campus be? He said, I have a business school that by Bob Stern that everybody loves, and it's a historicist architecture. Everybody loves it. And he asked me if I loved it. I said, yeah, it's friendly, it's nice, I understand it. I like Bob Stern, I think it's wonderful. He said, so why shouldn't I build a whole new campus in that style? Everybody will love it, it'd be great. I said, why don't you do it? I think it's a good idea. I said, you gotta just keep in mind that you're the president of one of the most important universities and you're preparing people for the future. And when you build that campus like that, you're telling them, you don't know how to work in the future, so work in the past. I said, it's a stupid message, but if you want to do that, that's fine.
Thank you very much.